right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We are sitting at Polly's, one of the restaurants owned by James Beard Award winner Paul Smith. And right before the episode, I realized we actually have two James Beard Award winners in the room today. In addition to Paul Smith, Paul, thank you so much for allowing us to record here. Dixon Dedman, 2XO, and also a James Beard Award winner, the Beaumont Inn, right?
That's right. That's right.
So we've got both of them in the room. Chef Paul's going to feed us when we're done here, but we're going to talk a little bit of 2XO. We're going to talk about the Gem of Kentucky. You are going to settle a debate between Joe and I today in a blind. Which barrel is better? If you listen to the episode of the 2XO barrel pick, it actually aired last Thursday. I was a big fan of barrel 170. Joe liked 187. We both tried to persuade Kyle to go with us. Kyle went with Joe. So we're going to see which one you like the best. And then we're going to revisit one of your old batches of Kentucky Owl. When Dixon was on the show back in April of 2023, I asked him which was his favorite batch. He said batch number 9. I hope it's still batch number 9.
Sure.
All right, we're going to try that too. But Dixon, man, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
That's great to have you.
So we did 2 barrels of 2XO Gem of Kentucky. We sent out an email and we sold every single bottle of every single barrel in less than 24 hours. Thanks to our buddy Les at Walgreens for running those barrels through. It looked like, I mean, there were so many middle-aged men over there getting bottle signed. I thought Livy Dunn was in town.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm not quite as attractive as Livy Dunn, but I think there's that is incredible. That is I'm honored, so appreciative. I love the way it worked out. I love the story behind the 2 barrels, and you know, I also, to talk about your debate. And I think, you know, when I created the Gem of Kentucky concept, it was really to, in my opinion, to go back to a true single barrel program. You know, a lot of the single barrel is a lot of times more of a marketing term outside of the private selection thing. The larger mass-produced single barrels only get bottled as a single barrel if they match the exact same profile of all the other. And so when I, you know, set the proof of the Gem of Kentucky at 108, which is most of those when we dump the barrels are between, you know, 109 to 112, 113. So bottled at 108, very little dilution there. And that was more of a not compliance thing, but if everything's at a separate proof, that it's a different item number if they're, you know, and so that was more of a make it easy on our distribution partners. But use second barrels, different char levels on the second barrels. What I really wanted was this incredible variation across the program so that, you know, the people that gravitate to the softer, sweeter ones, that was theirs. You know, we'd have some with a little more spice, a little more red fruit to them, but it was designed to be a real, you know, single barrel program that showed kind of the nuance of each individual barrel. So, you know, to me, the compliment comes when you got half the room that are gravitating towards this one and half the room that are gravitating towards that one, and you can see the variance across the, you know, the profiles of the 2 barrels.
When we did the barrel selection, you sent us hand-picked from 6 different barrels, the barrel numbers, the proof. However, what wasn't disclosed was whether it was going to be char number 3 barrel or char number 4. So interestingly enough, doing a blind on all 6 barrels and trying to figure out which ones we liked, the question would be, did we pick somewhere in that variation of the barrels? And that would explain a lot.
You know, Joe runs Appalachian Barrel Select, which is the biggest whiskey club in West Virginia. And when they found out we were picking the barrels, I mean, our inbox was full. I mean, people were like, please. And then when I posted something on Instagram, on the Bourbon Podcast Instagram, I can't tell you how many people. Where is it? I'll drive up. We had a guy drive up from Raleigh, North Carolina the other day to try to get some bottles. You know, it's very popular. It was, I think it was in 2023 or 2024, it was in the top 3 whiskey of the year, the Gem of Kentucky. We've tried all of the 2XO expressions. And I think you brought a new one today, which we haven't tried. I don't even know if it's released yet.
Has not been released yet.
So we're going to try that one as well. But if people want to know kind of the history dating back to Kentucky Owl, they can go listen to one of the episodes we did in 2023. Mm-hmm. We actually re-released that one in 2025 as part of our Masters series, which is a compliment.
Oh,
Masters series.
Yeah.
And it's one of our most downloaded episodes ever. So people are very interested in 2XO.
Well, I'm just glad that you all actually, put it out there, because I as I recall, trying to make it work, and I was calling in from a I was in a kind of walking around a parking lot dodging traffic, talking to y'all, and I'm sure you're sitting there going, what are we doing with this redneck on this podcast? But it was great. This is a lot of fun, and I know we talked a lot about that was really in that transition period.
Right.
And we were, I was moving away from all that we did with Kentucky Owl and kind of leaning into the development of 2XO. It was still, I don't even know that at that time we would have had kind of the full lineup out. I think we were just releasing those Icon bottles at that time.
Right. I think we talked about that, and I think Kentucky Owl wrapped up. What was it? 20.
I was done at the end of 2020, so okay. I kind of finished out the end of 2020.
And when did you launch 2XO? Did you take any time off?
We launched in September of 22. So that was the Phoenix blend was kind of September of 22. But in terms of like working on the brand, building the brand, starting to work with the liquid, that was, beginning of 2021. So it was a good year and a half plus to, start building out the program and working on, kind of the strategy. It was always interesting, because when we launched Kentucky Owl, there was no plan. There wasn't a plan. There wasn't a 3-year plan. There wasn't, and so partnering with Prestige Beverage Group and that, it was all of a sudden I was like, oh, wow, okay, y'all are looking a little further out than next month. Okay, we can, we'll figure this out. But
sounds like an actual business plan.
Yeah, oddly enough, there was one of those. It was very interesting.
So when I know you released the Phoenix blend, then you did Sneakerhead, you did the Kiowa blend. There've been a number of them. How many total expressions have you put out to date under the 2XO label?
So there's the core products, which we call the Oak series, and we led with the American Oak in that series, and that's really become kind of the flagship staple. Everyday expression. I always refer to it as our, you can kill it on Tuesday and replace it on Wednesday bottle. Mm-hmm. And then added the French oak to that later.
Oh, that's right.
And then recently in that oak series added the white oak rye. So that's kind of the base, the core 3 currently, and there's plans to add to that. But those 3 are we continue to produce them. They're kind of our everyday. And then that second tier, which has been called several things, we called it the Blender series until I can't remember which big supplier called and said, hey, we own the trademarks to Blender series. You can't use that anymore.
Oops.
And then we called it the Icon series, and pretty much got the same note about that. There's a big wine company that owns the Icon series, right. And they said, hey, this is, I guess we didn't think it was a big deal because we didn't think you'd ever, sell any bottles, but you are, so now you can't use that anymore. I believe that they're calling it the collectibles series now, but that's just a matter of time until somebody says, so anyway.
There'll be a cease and desist when you get home.
It's happening. So in that, this on the end there, the hip hop blend is actually the 7th in that line. So there's the Phoenix, Innkeepers, Tribute, Kiowa, Sneakerhead, Vinyl, and then this will be the 7th in that, and then obviously the Gem of Kentucky. So Gem of Kentucky, I think we're up to 187 that you have has. I think 190 is the top number we've done at this point.
We could probably have sold all 190 barrels.
Yeah, the rate
in
they
the
were
club.
coming in, right? Still not 24 hours.
Listen, we can we can scratch that itch.
So tell us when. I know it was about probably 6 months to a year ago that you launched the Gem of Kentucky Barrel Program. And I think I was one of the first people in your inbox. I think it said like you had posted it like 8 seconds, and I was already on you to start getting barrels. Where all are you doing the barrel program? Is it nationwide? Is it limited to a certain region?
It is nationwide. I mean, I've done that as soon as you say you're going to launch a brand, I mean, as soon as we launched 2XO, just the Phoenix blend, the first question is always barrel program. Can we get a barrel? Can we talk about, and I guess, and, having been in the restaurant business, when I had the inn, we were doing the inn and we had this bourbon bar. I bet I did 30 single barrels for our restaurant. I bet I've participated in 150 or more barrel selections. Groups come to Kentucky and they say, "Hey, will you come with us? Will you help us? Will you, or bourbon groups that I was a part of and doing the selections." And so when we started talking about a barrel program with 2XO, I really wanted to kind of think through the whole thing and figure out, I don't mean to say the right way to do it, but a way in which it didn't, get more complicated than it should, where you kind of lost, sometimes it's you get barrels based on what other products the account, you buy. I mean, I ran into that, years ago. We were doing 4 barrels a year for our restaurant of Four Roses, and then then they say, well, now you're not selling enough yellow labels, so you're down to 3, and now you have and you have to put this in a cocktail, and that's just that's every brand. So for me, it was like once the toothpaste is out of the tube, so how do we figure out the right way to do this and not have it get lost and kind of monopolized by bigger retailers that just had more more juice or whatever. So the target was mostly kind of independent retailers who had been very supportive of the other 2XO products and who were good partners, and as well as bourbon groups, bourbon societies, bourbon clubs, and I went so far as to to work it so that we could just do like you've got partials, so we weren't going to add, because in my mind, let's make it a 15 case minimum. These groups want 15 cases because in my mind, I want you to sell out and want the next one. I don't want to park 30 something cases on you and you get through 20 of them, and then we got to figure out what to do with the rest. So there was a lot of kind of a lot of time spent thinking, how do we do this? How do we do this right? Who are the right partners? So we and then it just took off.
Because Gem of Kentucky is your premier line, maybe just tell our listeners what makes that line so unique, why the price, the price on that bottle is obviously higher, but the process you go through to actually create that whiskey, what makes it a unique, one of a kind
it's funny
offering.
When you talk about it's not like it's proprietary information or anything like that, but sometimes with sometimes there's a such thing as too much information. Like we've provided, we've complicated this selection, and really the selection should be there's 6. Which one do we like the best? And this, the whole 2XO program, and specifically Gem of Kentucky and these blends are, when you start talking to people who really want the nitty gritty, like the details, I think they then find how unique this program is. When starting back in 2015. Prestige Beverage Group that I partnered with, they entered into an arrangement with a small but kind of one of the heritage Kentucky distilleries, and to help them with some of their other projects, they basically said, what about if in part of this we lay down some barrels for you guys? And they said, oh, that sounds great. So in 2015, this is before I was involved, they entered into a deal. It's 500 barrels a year that they would make for Prestige Beverage Group, with the caveat that it has to be a completely unique, it has to be a completely different setup all the way down from anything that's produced at that facility. And so Prestige, said that's totally fine. We just got to figure out somebody that can help us with this. And so I think I've told this story before, but they went out and hired the recently retired master distiller from Four Roses, a guy named Jim Rutledge, who happens to be...
We've heard of him.
Yeah. And Jim was my mentor. I've known Jim my entire life. Back when Four Roses owned Seagram's, they were bringing their customers to stay at the inn to visit the Four Roses distillery. And, we've been working with Jim and Al, since I was a kid. I've known, so Jim was one of the people that I really leaned on when I was starting Kentucky Al. So at any rate, Jim comes in and says, this is what I would do. And the distillery said, well, we can't do that. And he said, no, you said I could do whatever I want. This is what I want to do. And it's very old school, very Jim Rutledge, obviously the high rye mash bill. Nothing I have was distilled at Four Roses, by the way. Let me just clear that up. There's but the 35 connection is a Jim 35, thing. Jim is a 35 guy, loves the high rye. So, he went back, low set temps, low cook temps, low entry, it's coming off the still at about 120, entry into the barrel at 118. Everything is very old school, and very, very different than kind of modern day distillation, where it's all about maximizing the volume. Jim is all about maximizing the congener, quality and building, big whiskeys from the get-go. And so, when I partner with, Prestige then reaches out to me and says, hey, will you take a look at this liquid we've got? We've got basically 5-year-old and down. We just need an opinion. We just want to know, should we sell this stuff? What's the value of it on the market? We just like to have somebody look at it and tell us what to do with it. I had created the 2XO concept. I tasted the liquid. My plan was to just tell them, let's evaluate this every year. And I was going to send them a big fat bill and take my kids to Disney. But I tasted the liquid and I was like, wait a minute, this could be a really cool opportunity for both of us. So that's how we got together. When we started talking about, what we're doing, and I started tasting these as they aged, and to me, it made total sense. Because I wanted a product, I wanted a barrel, I wanted liquid that I could then add that secondary oak exposure to sweeten up the front end to balance spice on the back end, so we could create this complexity across the palate. I was already on the hunt for kind of the spiciest stuff I could find in an effort to be able to balance that with additional oak interaction and build out kind of complexity and movement across the palate, if that makes sense. So this liquid was just it was just perfect for that, this opportunity. But as we got into it, moved these barrels, I started the program at about 5.5, 6 years. I would take 300 barrels, dump them out of the barrels they were in, introduce them into new charred oak barrels a second time. We have, and to have variation, I would use both char 3 and char 4 for the second barreling. And to eliminate kind of the variable of how a barrel ages on the first floor of a rickhouse versus the sixth floor of a rickhouse, because we had that variation across the secondary barreling. I moved them all to this really, we found this really great aging facility in Bardstown. And so we get this, amazing amount of interaction with the barrel, but the majority of the evaporate from that point forward is ethyl alcohol. So we're basically losing proof as these things age. So to answer your question, 20 minutes later, what I think sets a lot of this stuff, both the Icon Collectibles, Blender Series, whatever the heck you want to call it, and the Gem of Kentucky apart, is that you have less dilution in these products than you have in almost any other bourbon that's out there. Even barrel strength bourbons that you're buying now, there's dilution on the front end, if not on the back end, right? So they're coming off the still in the 150s, entry proof of 125. You've got that dilution on the front end. This stuff, we're coming off the still. These Gem of Kentuckys, that one, for example, would have come off the still at 120 and a 118 entry proof. So we're talking, a cup of water. That ages in total anywhere from 7.5 to about 9 years. And then when you dump that barrel at 109 and bottle it at 108, we're talking thimbles of water in there. So that's why I think, they're full flavored. There's this robust quality to them, but it's not an overly boozy thing. You don't have to fight through the ethyl alcohol on the higher proof. But when you kind of couple this liquid that has not had this dilution take place at either point, and add to that, secondary oak interaction for a minimum of 18 months, you get these big, full flavored whiskeys that really have movement on the palate. And I don't like one dimensional where you taste this and it just sits on the front and it doesn't, or it's all spice and so I'm always trying to create things where it kind of checks boxes on the way back as you taste it. And
that's kind of unusual to have it aged that long second barrel. You see a lot of secondary finishes, 3 to 6 months, whatever it is, but this one spends a lot of time in that second barrel, and then just number 3 and 4. So essentially, Gem of Kentucky are producing 2 types of whiskey with 2 types of flavors due to that secondary, right? The number 3 and 4. Just for my own benefit, you're like how you see that number 3 char and number 4 char affecting the whiskey, the end product in terms of the flavors, the finish.
Yeah, I mean, 3 generally, 3 is almost like a amplifier of spice. 3 brings out some more of the spice, and 3 also, in this particular product, when you taste the stuff before it goes in the second barrel, there's a lot of kind of this great kind of red fruit note and this fruitiness. So 3 kind of emphasizes those. 4 with the heavier char and the longer time, so to get deeper into that char, that's really where it kind of takes it more in that very kind of sweet, rich, chocolate, that kind of thing. So most of the time, when I sit down with people and they go, wow, these are so different, and I can just be like, well, that's a 3, that's a 4, and which may be more complicated than you want to, or more deeper than you want to get, but
it's a perfect segue
Yes.
into the battle,
Right.
because
The battle
the battle is which which do you prefer? You're going to decide between Joe and I.
Yep. So we had
Barrel
6,
170 versus barrel 187.
right. So we had 6 barrels of Gemma, Kentucky sent to us. Beautiful barrels. And we wound up as a group picking 187 only because Kyle and we miss Kyle, by the way. And can you imagine the newest blend? He's going to be devastated he's not here because
Kyle likes sneakers and hip hop.
He's a hip hop guy and sneakers. But we overruled Ben and selected barrel 187. And Ben and Kieran Patel, who's here with us today, Dr. Patel, really loved 170. And so for Ben's birthday, Les over at Walgreens and I said, for his birthday, Les, you can shoot over a note to him and let him know we're going to buy the second barrel too. So that's...
See, I thought it was because I threw a temper tantrum. And they said, well, let's just get that second barrel just to shut him up.
I don't care how it happened. I'm just glad it happened.
But we have you have them blinded here.
Yeah. So we have them blind. And the goal was not to pick which is which. You could probably look at these and tell us which is which, right? But let's nose them, let's taste them.
Yeah.
And then you tell us which do you prefer, A or B. And then we're going to do the big reveal.
Okay.
All right?
I like it. So it's what we like.
It's what you like the best. Now,
All right.
if you go from 187 and now you prefer 170, I automatically win.
It is 12 noon on a Wednesday.
That's perfect time to drink.
I know. That's why I've been
We'll call
actually
this
wetting
segment
my
Getting
palate.
Drunk with Dixon.
Yeah,
Yes.
so inappropriate to just dump them together in one glass and say I prefer.
We could even do a blend.
I have
right.
a blender, you know.
The Charleston blend, right? I think you
The
did.
Charleston. That's right.
No, the Kiowa, right?
Kiowa. But you know, what makes this even more complicated on my end is that when if you guys got together and you went to Bardstown Bourbon Company and you said we want 500 barrels a year for the next 5 years, you're going to get 500 barrels and they may all be the same lot number distilled on the same date, or it may spread across 2. But that, it's this project that we had, the way Jim set it up, it's 50 barrels a month, 10 months out of the year.
Oh.
So, when I'm looking at 6-year-old barrels, the February barrels are, they're not the same profile as like the November barrels. So
do you see a big variation between them?
There is. And it's just whether humidity or whatever was going on in there, but it's a, so there's that added variable across there. So
Well, I'm just going to say the color is beautiful on this whiskey. All right, and that's amazing. The viscosity is terrific. They're super creamy, both of them. I've been sipping on them during the podcast, which I love those. I love a good creamy. The flavor profile is great on both. I know which one I like better now.
Boy, here we go.
But it's early in the day. But
Here we go.
These are both excellent and both different
All right.
to me, anyways.
We'll let Dixon go first, then Joe, then I'll go.
So one of these, maybe Dixon, we have a 187, 170. One of these you had mentioned to me was finished in char number 3 and one in char number 4, which is interesting that we would gravitate then to 2 different, barrel finishes. And I think then we offer the club a variety.
They're both
But
exceptional.
I'll say this.
One to me stands out.
We released last night. There are 160, 180 bottles that came in for the 2 barrels, 90 each. And then by the time we started this podcast, we're essentially, sold all 190. We're right at about, maybe 5 pairs left.
And that
in
was
less
before
than
Dixon
24
signed
hours.
them. Dixon
Yeah.
hadn't even signed them.
yeah,
at
we
that point.
also got to check.
Yeah.
Captain All Thumbs over there was knocking a few around, so there may be a couple.
That's true.
Cracked leakers or whatever.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
I'll take
there's.
those.
Just teasing. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm expecting a lot of requests for bottles. I'm not sure how we're going to allocate these, but anyways.
He just said he was all thumbs today, so that's right.
All right.
Dixon, what do you think about these 2 barrels that we picked? Just maybe your thoughts, A and B.
Well, no, I think I know which one is which. I admittedly have said this for many, many, many years. I'm not a tasting note guy. I can do it. I have to do it. They make me do it. You know, I mean, every time we do something, it's like, we're still waiting on those tasting notes. I'm like, okay, you know, I love tasting notes as much as I like 6 a.m. flights. But that, your point about, and what I like about both of these, and it's a different experience, but after I swallow both of these, I can still feel it from the tip of my tongue all the way to a spice on on the back end. So it shows that movement and that complexity. And I'm more of a mouthfeel and a feel guy, and there's both of these show an exceptional kind of oily, viscous quality to them. That it's almost like there's a coating quality, so. To me, I think, B is the one with a little more weight and spice to the back end. A is the one that lands a little further and starts a little heavier on the front. So based on that, I think A is the 187 and B would be the 170. And I find myself with these to be more of a spice guy. I like a little bit more of that kind of back end.
Did you just vote for 187? A or B? Are you going B?
Well, it's interesting, but I think I've been drinking A and B back and forth. And the other night when I had these both open, I had people over. It was a very expensive tasting because you're going back and forth and back and forth. But I really felt like at that time 187 really opened up. But I do think A, for me, has like a really nice profile right up front.
Yeah.
It builds up. It actually, to me, has more fruit flavors, which I'm guessing now that kind of leads me to 170. But it's also a beautiful spice, long finish.
But it's funny to me, like how, because essentially, I mean, maybe they are aged a little differently, but it's the same recipe, different secondary finish char, right? They're both great, but they're very different. Mm-hmm. I'm gravitating towards B. Now, I don't know if I've switched or not, but I like B. I'll never turn down A, ever.
Wouldn't that be funny?
You're going with A or B?
A. But wouldn't that be...
I'm going A also.
But right, here's the thing. Wouldn't it be funny if we flip-flop this thing?
We could.
Yeah, that would tell you. But I would say, again, because it's so viscous, that I think having a few drinks of this, like you would want to not just do one pour. Mm-hmm. I think you could almost, if you had, we encourage the club. I was a little worried about it. When you put out an email to the club and you say, we're going to give priority to pairs. You got 90 pairs out there. Mm-hmm. It's $399 to get the pair, right? But you can still put in an order for one bottle because we want to encourage people to experience both barrels side by side. Tell us what they think. We're not here to tell them what's better, but what did you like better? But the more that I drank that throughout the course of a night, even in small pours back and forth, because of the viscous nature and the way it would coat the mouth, flavors would really develop over time. So at 12 noon today, I probably need more, but I like A.
Well, I think the beauty of this is that this is not live. If we all, if this is wrong, we just reshoot the segment, and you can be a.
No.
If you know anything about Ben, he likes to settle scores. So this is a big deal.
All right.
I have no idea which is which.
A is 187 and B is 170.
Wouldn't you know? There it is.
All right. So I want all barrels, the 180, the 170. I want every bottle from those barrels.
There's a couple left over there for you, Ben. I'll take the 187 pair.
At least we're consistent.
I may know where there's some more cases of either of those.
I was hoping you brought some in on your truck.
I think it's great. I really do love both of these. Going back,
they're both exceptional.
They really are.
There's something about
it's luscious.
To me, B is it's kind of, and I don't do tasting notes. I'm not sophisticated enough to taste. I don't know if something tastes like creme brulee. They say shit that I've never even heard of. Yeah. But B to me is just like this very subtle, packed with flavor, and not as much spice.
Yeah,
So-
there's a softness to B, and
Yeah.
A has a little more. It just lingers a little bit
Yeah.
longer. It just
Well, and I think getting both again, I think, and maybe, and I don't, when individuals go to a store to buy Gemma Kentucky, or if they're going to hunt down some of these barrels, because it's very, you're only doing what, 80, was it 40 barrels, 80 barrels a year, maybe?
Yeah, I mean,
it's not very few. Let's just call
Yeah,
it 40
yeah,
a year
it
or
is.
so. But is there any way for them to tell? Is this one in
No,
3 or
and-
this one's 4? Because there's even like
Oh, yeah,
always
that's
this misinterpretation of, well, some are in 3 and some are in 4, and then you're kind of blending them together to create this, and that's not the case. I wouldn't call it a crapshoot, but it's like these, some of these are finished in the number 3 and some are in number 4. They're going to produce a wild range of flavors. And what I found interesting was that when we were done with the podcast, and I had no idea going into today that these were different barrels. And so in the email I released last night, I put the tasting notes of what a number 3 would tend to produce and what number 4 finish would tend to produce.
Were you right?
And it is spot on to what we're tasting today. And Dixon settled that with me score as he was signing bottles. He said, oh yeah, well, one of those is number 3 and one's number 4. Well, no wonder you gravitated towards one profile and we gravitated towards another, though we appreciated like how they interacted.
Well, since we had such limited bottles, we're going to do a bottle buyback program. Anybody that wants to sell your bottle of 170, I'm here for it.
Did Kieran, did you try 3 and 4? Did you try AB by chance? Okay.
All right. All right. Well, we're
need
going
to have him settle.
We've got these now. Here's the other thing. So now, did you blend those yet? Are you going to put them together and blend them?
Of course.
Dixon's over here. He's like, he's at the lab. He's always at the lab. I also want to try, and I have never tried some of the older Kentucky Owls.
Yeah.
And so when you had you on in 2023, I asked you which was, because I think you were involved in batches, in addition to like some of the ryes, but batches 1 through 10.
1 through 10.
And I think, I forget when 10 came out, but that was kind of the end of your involvement in the batches. And then I asked you which was your favorite. Now, when I went to, I can't remember 3 years ago, but I went back and I Googled it and they said, oh, Dixon's favorite's batch 8. But then I listened to the episode this morning, it's batch 9.
No, it's 9. Well,
It just so happens I had 9.
now recognize that the pre-8 batches were really small batches compared.
Right,
Like
right.
8 jumped to like 8,000 bottles or whatever. And so, you're almost taking 8, 9, and 10 as one with much larger release. And those early batches, which were very small, right?
Well, it was
Sub
only
2,000.
10,000. It was only 10,000 bottles.
Yeah. So
or
the
11,000.
batch 1 through 6 were like sub
Which
2,000.
at the time felt massive.
Yeah.
a vet.
That right.
A vet.
That right.
Batch 1 was a total of 5 barrels.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like
So I pulled this bottle off the shelf. I've had it for many, many years. And I was going to have you sign it. And then I was like, that's dumb. Like, I've got Dixon here. I've got a bunch of my friends here. Let's just drink it.
Yeah.
So I brought these little baby Glencairns, and I've never tried the older batches, so I'm anxious to try it. I have, we'll go ahead and pour some now.
Nice.
And maybe you can just kind of talk us through.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
while
it
we're
was-
on that real quick, I just want to say maybe even tonight, if we have a little meet and greet that we decide to do, bring just as a contrast the Kentucky Owl Rye, the batch 1.
oh,
Do you have that?
I have it, and I'll bring it tonight, and we'll open that up. But let's talk about the Kentucky Owl batches, because Stoley wound up right buying the company. I think the brand is now kind of closed down again, correct?
Correct.
And so maybe Dixon can come to the rescue and re-erect the brand a second time, because he did that for his people don't realize his great-great-grandfather is the kind of started Kentucky Owl, right? The distillery. And so Dixon re-erected the brand. And that brand now is defunct again. So I'm wondering again if there's a future for that.
no, get some lawyers out of the way or whatever.
Damn lawyers.
I mean, it's things get complicated now. They get tied up in it.
That's what we do. We complicate things.
It was just very interesting.
It's a big deal.
I love. all parts of this industry are enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love the people part of it. But the blending piece, the kind of crafting piece, that kind of working through, it's very internal. I don't have a bunch of people in lab coats that I say, hey, what do you think? It's just like this, very kind of quiet, blending program, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and putting these things together. And it's very different now with 2XO in that, and I think in bourbon, when you talk bourbon, you talk, the term sourced is used to mean a lot of different things now. When they used to talk about Kentucky Owl being sourced, it meant that we were a non-distilling producer, and I was buying barrels from brokers when they would come on the market. It was the Wild West. I would get a call, and there's these 4-year-old barrels available, or these 8-year-old barrels available, and you were just kind of building an inventory. And then, now you have a lot of the contract distilling that has developed with a lot of and so you have other brands that are also sourced, but they have a dedicated source. It's a program that's, the whiskey is made for them. And we were kind of, definitely in one camp with Kentucky Owl and moving towards the other camp with Kentucky Owl. But, like blending with 2XO, every barrel that we have was distilled and made exclusively for that program. It is my job, and what I do is during the maturation process to manipulate those barrels so that they have different profiles with which to blend. When I was doing these, our inventory was, at one time I probably had 15 different mash bills of different ages.
And this is the Kentucky Owl.
The Kentucky Owl,
Yeah.
And so there are probably, and obviously this has been a little while. This would have been released in 2019. But there are probably at least 7, maybe 8 different mash bills from 8 different producers that are represented in this bottle or in this blend. 11,000 bottles. But that was the fun. Is like it really had this inventory of all these pieces, and it was kind of like mismatched toys, and then you kind of Frankenstein them into something that is really cool and pleasant, So this, what's crazy about this, I'm sure that I can. Well, I mean, who's going to sue me over it now? But that's definitely
Somebody.
That's the highest. This is the highest proof bourbon that I've ever.
What's
made.
the proof on it?
127.6.
Interesting.
It's the highest proof I've ever made. But there were in this. I don't know if they would have been 13 or 14-year-old. The oldest stuff in there is like 13 or 14-year-old Heaven Hill barrels that were like in the high 140s. Just monster.
So you were blending hazmats with something.
Yes, but there's probably the youngest stuff in here is probably 5.5, 6 years old. There were barrels that we contracted out of a newer Louisville distillery that was just doing it for me on the side because we were buddies. And then, there's some older. There's probably 2 different ages of Barton barrels in here. It was literally like. You got a whole box of crayons to try to figure out how to make something, work.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when he was mixing and blending all of these things to try to come up with
the fun part. Like if you, this offer is serious. If you guys ever find yourself in Kentucky, I have
2.5 hours away.
I have, a room full of all these old samples. I mean, thousands of them.
Oh, wow.
Dixon.
And I also have.
I'll find myself there tomorrow.
You know, like
I think we could do a podcast too, right?
we
Bring
literally
crew out
could-
there.
I could find a box and of this batch, batch number 9. I could find a box that would have probably 15 different test blends that I rejected in that box. You know,
That's
until
crazy.
it get to whatever. I had a group in, and we did the same thing. They brought a bottle of batch number 8. And they were like, "You want to sign it?" And I was like, "Of course I'll sign it." And then they had too much to drink, and they're like, "We're going to open it." And I was like, "Okay, let's open it." And I was like, "Well, while we're on the topic, let me get about 6 of these batch 8 rejected blends, and
Wow.
you can see." And they're just like, "This is the coolest thing ever." And I was like,
So you were able to go back and kind of go through and walk them through. These are the blends that we tried.
Yeah.
Didn't meet my approval.
right. And you know,
whatever
these
the-
guys are like, what's wrong with this one? And I was like, I don't know. That was, you know, I've got my notebook, and they're like, well, none of this makes sense. I was like, it makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to you.
And it-
If
you know,
you had the same juice, if you had, you know, the Heaven Hill, Barton, whatever, same age, could you recreate this? Do you think if you sat down with the exact same barrels that you could recreate it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I could get pretty close. I mean,
Okay.
you know, that was what was so interesting about that period, and then it, you know, it really, this is about the end of when it really started changing.
Yeah,
because
COVID.
when we first started doing this, you know, I get a call, and they'd say, "Hey, there are now 160 barrels of 7-year-old wild turkey that just hit the market." Okay, so it just like a broker just
Wow.
comes with this stuff. And in 2010, I would say, okay, well, I want 40 of them, and they would say, okay, and the price was nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is before nothing. So I was like, I want 40 of them. They're like, okay, we will wrap this whole thing up when we can sell the other 120. Right? So they had to go find other people to buy these things. You fast forward, you know, say 8 years, and I would get a phone call, and it was like, "Dixon, there are 1,500 barrels of whatever 4-year-old Barton available. I can overnight you a 200 ml sample from one of those to represent all of those barrels. The price is astronomical, and you've got 24 hours to get the wire in, or I'm going to the next guy on the list to see if they want
Wow.
it." And that's how fast that whole thing changed.
Do you
And
think
that's
will it come back? Do you think it'll come back?
well, I mean, in the sense that, yeah, there's a whole bunch of barrels out there available right now.
There is.
Cheaper, I would imagine, than
much
they were.
cheaper,
Yeah.
you know, different structure, different quality, different whatever. But you know, so yeah, I mean, it's gonna it will kind of cycle back around to something similar to that. But I don't think, you know, and I don't know how it happened. The rye that you were talking about.
That batch
So,
1 rye, and we'll bring it tonight.
The
That'll be
rye
great.
is, to me, that rye is one of the. It's just exceptional, and I think all of them. Actually, I love drinking too. You know, it's a little bit lower proof, but that rye. So I got a phone call about that rye.
And this is the Kentucky Owl
Kentucky
batch
Owl.
1. There were only 4 batches, I believe.
Four
batches of the rye. These are
So I get this phone call, and they're like, "Hey, there's somebody in Canada that's just found that they've got, I can't remember how many barrels of, they were trying to sell it by the proof gallon, but they had found a certain number of barrels of this 9, 10, and 11-year-old at the time rye whiskey." And I was like, well, that's interesting. And they said, but they only want to sell about a third of it right now. And I said, okay, can I get a sample? They sent me a sample. I was like, this is exceptional. What's the price? They told me the price. It was dirt cheap. I'm, you know, for what it was. And so without, you know, I'm more of an ask for forgiveness, not permission kind of guy. So I just said, okay, offer them, you know, a little bit more per proof gallon. And we'll pay, quite a bit more in total, but we want all of it. And, they hemmed and hawed and came back and said, okay, it's yours. So this was Kentucky straight, distilled Kentucky straight rye whiskey that I think had been distilled as a test. Ended up sold to a Canadian company that was going to end up putting that in a blended whiskey. They decided not to. It came back.
I'm reading between the lines right now. Yep.
And I do not know who distilled it. Okay. I still to this day
in Kentucky, right?
But got it, and but it worked like that then.
Yeah.
It was just it's Wild West.
And so those are those for the listeners. The Kentucky Owl bourbons batches 1 through
4
on the rise 1 through 4, and then the bourbons 1 through
10.
1 through 10 roughly, with batches 8, 9, and 10 of the Kentucky Owl bourbon potentially still available out there on the secondary market if people are thinking about trying to hunt it down. I see it out there every once in a while. And I do see those rise out there 1 through 4 periodically. Really? So yeah, they can be found. And it's interesting because it's where you really harnessed your skills, and some of those blends are all unique. And like you said, when you have the possibilities, this has pre-been, now it's not unusual for 10 or 20,000 bottle releases, right? Unlimited releases. But some of these, particularly pre-batch 8, were sub 2,000 bottles, So even though it might say 8 or 10,000 bottles, that's still, by today's nature, very small number.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, by the way, batch 9 is amazing.
That's a banger.
I got to be honest. I'd take the 2XO Gem of Kentucky. That would be, it's great, and the flavor is incredible. I mean, you can taste the age on it, but it's hard to beat Gem. I mean, there's a reason why every time we review it, it is, 6 thumbs up, making our list every year. There's just something about it. I mean,
I think, but even this is barrel strength at 120 something.
Yeah.
I don't think it drinks like it's that.
It does not.
It's
one of the things that it lacks the kind of that viscosity.
Viscous.
It does.
The lusciousness of the.
That's what it was. There's something about the creaminess of the mouthfeel that it doesn't have. Now the flavor is amazing. Yeah. But there's something about the Gem that just like.
Well, I think people need
my jam.
People need to know that is a single barrel of a single doubled barrel, and so it's a single point of entry, and then ultimately coming out compared to some of the other, which are blends of thousands, like hundreds of barrels. So
now let's go to the unreleased, but I guess next release.
Yeah.
Which is, and Kyle is going to be so mad.
Yeah, Kyle is going to be very upset.
Well, we can make sure Kyle gets.
We'll get him some. So this is the 2XO the hip hop blend. All right. So you like sneakers? You like?
Is it on the market yet?
All right. No, I'm going to ask you. So if all hell's breaking loose and you can only save one pair of sneakers from your house, because I know you're sneakerhead. Which one do you say?
Yeah, I'm being honest. I passed that down. I mean, if I lose all mine, I'm fine. My son has a couple pairs that I'll never hear the end of it for the rest of my life. So
what's your go-to?
I'm probably going. He's got a pair of these and he did this deal where he found out a way to get in these drops.
Oh yeah,
and.
They're smarter than us, by the way.
He figured out, he's got our credit card in there. Whatever, so a couple of these. So maybe the most expensive pair that I own are some that he, figured out how to, so maybe I'm going to get those first.
Listen, I didn't know what a Yeezy was.
I know.
And my son came to me and was like, I need these. I don't know what and then I looked at him and was like, really? Like, I'm clearly not in style, but sneakers are a big thing. Kyle loves them. Kyle got me like some Jordans. I don't know which version it is, but like for my birthday, my 50th. So he loves them, but he also loves hip hop. So it's like you and Kyle are probably essentially the same person. Before we go to that, I want to ask you this question, and I didn't ask you in 2023. If you could have a drink with anyone, living or dead,
Oh gosh.
if you could have a drink with anyone, living or dead, who would it be, and what would you drink?
Wow.
And it doesn't have to be your whiskey. It could be any.
Sneakers and what? No. I mean, what's the? Can I think about?
You can
this?
think about it, and then we'll come back to it.
We'll come back to that. But.
So we have had answers from Abraham Lincoln to
A construction worker,
right?
That that hard of work. A guy said,
So
I want to stop over there and have a drink with you.
and it's interesting to me to see if they pick somebody who's alive that they know, or somebody that's passed that they know, or somebody that's passed that they didn't know. And we've had answers all over. So
yeah, family member, non-family.
I hate to be super lame, but one point, this was really cool. These people called and it was when we still had the inn, and they asked if, and I was doing Kentucky Owl, and they asked if they could have dinner with my father and I, which was kind of weird. That I was like, no, I mean, we're happy to let's meet for a drink. Whether no, we want to have dinner with you. So we sit down with these people. Come to find out, this gentleman and his wife have been for years and years and years going to these estate sales, buying all this vintage whiskey. When
Smart.
great Aunt Edna, passes away, and she's got a closet full of all these bottles, and so we sit down with these people. They're pouring us all these different old little pre-prohibition things, and we finished dinner, and then he pulls out a bottle. It was actually a pint. And it said Hudson XXX whiskey on the front, but on the back it said distilled at the C.M. Dedman Distillery in Salvisa, Kentucky, which was my great grandfather's distillery. And then he immediately just cracks the bottle and pours.
Oh, that's great.
So first time I've seen the empties of Kentucky Owl in some of his bottles. I've never tasted this stuff before. So we sit there and with these people, and it was one of those. Both my dad and I, are just kind of like you zone out. We both kind of realized he's drinking his great grandfather's whiskey. I'm drinking my great grandfather's whiskey.
Wow.
And for the first time, both of us, first time ever, and was terrible. Well, the whiskey was terrible, but I should say terrible. It was just,
but still, it's 100 years old. Or
I've had that was the first of probably 5 or 6 times I have had whiskey distilled by either my great grandfather or my great grandfather.
Oh.
So if you go to Bardstown Bourbon Company, I'm sure you all have been there before, and the oldest bottle that they have.
We've been in the room.
Yeah. So the Cedarbrook from I think it's 1870 something. That was distilled by my great grandfather.
Wow.
So Cedarbrook, and there have been a couple McBrayers. So at any rate, to go back, I think honestly, for the sake of this conversation, if I could have an original Kentucky Owl with C.M. Dedman, who started the whole thing, who whatever. I mean, I'd love to sit down and see where that conversation went.
But he wasn't higher proof back then, right? What was the proof back when C.M. Dedman?
I don't think anybody was making higher.
Do you think he would have? Do you think he would enjoy the higher proof and the bigger flavors?
My guess is he had this huge kind of squirrel's tail across his face, the big old monster mustache, and I think it would curl that thing. I think he would be terrified of this, but I think it would be. I mean.
But it would be what an awesome experience to be able to have him kind of taste and tell you what he thinks about the new Dixon technique that makes 2XO unique, right?
Yeah, because I don't think they would ever think back then to double oak it, to secondary barrel it, right?
We may be getting way off topic here.
No, we're good.
Sorry if we are, but so my great grandfather, C.M. Dedman, was 6 years old when both of his parents passed away, and he was adopted by his uncle. And his uncle's name was William McBrayer. William McBrayer was the county judge executive in Anderson County, Kentucky, which is where Wild Turkey is, Four Roses is. It's just the county north of where I live. But and he was the county judge executive, but he also owned 3 distilleries. He had 3 distilleries that were just a side hustle. The biggest of which was that Cedar Brook. But he also owned the McBrayer distillery and a couple others. But, so when his adopted son, who was a pharmacist by trade, Northwestern graduate with a degree in pharmacy, when he got engaged and married in 1876, his wedding gift from his adopted father was basically the land and funds to build his own distillery. So he built that distillery, became operational in 1879, but that was not like that was a side hustle for all these people. That was just, he literally operated a pharmacy with his son. And that was just, it was like having,
I got Tupperware for my wedding.
Right.
Yeah, I think I got like Spanish porcelain.
So it wasn't, he was not like this. His adopted father was more like what you would consider some bourbon scion of the time. That was but he was, at any rate, I guess, he kind of was gifted this. He started it. It was obviously successful enough to last until he was forced to shut down in Prohibition. It died. I had this passion for the industry and this familial connection and kind of to play on the history and legacy of that. I decided against a lot of people's, they were like, this is a terrible idea. I was like, no, I'm just going to do it. If nobody buys Kentucky, if nobody buys a bottle of it, I got a bunch of whiskey to pour at my kid's wedding one day, and it turned into a thing. And, so many years later, this is what I'm doing. And that's, so that conversation, if I could sit down and have a whiskey with somebody, and just say, man, did you ever think that, you would end up with a distillery? Because I'm sure he'd be like, no, that was the weirdest wedding gift of all time. And he asked me the same thing. I'd be like, no, I thought I'd fry chicken and make country, corn pudding for the rest of my life.
At the Beaumont Inn, right? So this is this hip hop, right?
Yeah, the hip hop blend.
I've been drinking it because these stories have been amazing. And this is really good.
Yeah, 104 proof.
104.
Not out yet, but coming out. When do you think this will be released?
September release. So a little bit lighter, obviously going from 126 to 104.
When you create the blends, you're pulling from your barrels, obviously, to do these blends. So that's your inspiration. Yeah, exactly. How did you go about picking those barrels for this blend?
It's always funny. It's like when we did the Sneakerhead blend, and people are like, so are you trying to make this taste like a new shoe?
A sweaty shoe?
And the whole, the idea around, the naming function was always kind of something from my life, something that I enjoy. And then, which is fun. And it's to not do the generic batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, batch 4, but to have there be a story and to be able to do some fun stuff with it. When and this is one of the first things I've ever created where I did this in partnership with someone. So we brought on a young guy named Seth Robinson. I guess we're about a year and a half into that relationship now, and Seth Most of that was because if I didn't get some help traveling around the country, I was, going to end up divorced. And so, I needed somebody to zig when I was zagging or whatever. But, what's so much fun about this is, every one of these is effectively a snapshot of the best thing that we could put together at that moment. So, it's not like, oh, I want to make this one sweeter, or I want to make this one fruitier. I want to make, we've got 150, 200 barrel samples in front of us from different lots, different char levels, different, some of them not double barreled, some of them with, and you just start, you were kind of putting paint on a canvas to see, how it comes together. And it, it's not as if we're trying to create one like, oh, this is what you should drink when you listen to hip hop.
Right.
But it's just it's a cool, and it's what you enjoy, right? I mean,
it is. It was actually pretty neat. One of my partners lives just outside New York City, and has known one of the members of the Sugar Hill Gang for a while, and so they were at a function, and I think the vinyl blend, and so Dan is pouring this for one of the guys who's in full regalia, full, and he's like, that's cool. We should do something together sometime. So Dan calls me. He's like, all right, you love hip hop. He's like, are you familiar with the Sugar Hill Gang? And of course, I just threw out a couple bars. Like, I'm slightly familiar. And he's like, okay, can I pursue this? And I was like, I think this could be the coolest thing ever. And so I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. They're on a different circuit now, so they're kind of like, we're going to go. I think the Minnesota State Fair, we're going to do a big event.
Oh,
they're performing like New Jersey State Fair, so it's, but
when you go to Minnesota, I have to go there. That's where
awesome.
my company's headquartered there. So let's go.
So I always ask the question, if you could have a drink with anybody living or dead, who would it be? Excluding Sugar Hill Gang, if you could have a drink with a hip hop artist, who would it be? Who's your go-to?
Well, I would probably.
Oh, he's pulling out the Apple iTunes.
No.
He's thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have. Do you know Nas? I think Nas,
absolutely.
Or I would probably go there. Although I know it's lame and it has nothing to do with. But I'm a big Jay-Z guy too, so that.
Well, and I was looking at the Icon series. So this will be part of the Icon series, the 7th release in September. And if you go back for the listeners and you look at the various names, they're all, memories or things that have been important to Dixon. So that's what I find interesting about this, that there's a hip hop side aside from the sneaker and all the other things about Dixon.
See, I do. I love hip hop. But this was not necessarily my idea, to not the Rapper's Delight part, but even the hip hop part, because then I post all this silly stuff on my Instagram, and when my kids were younger, now they're cool. Now they're teenagers and they're like too cool. But when they were younger, and I was home, we get in the car to go to school, and if a song, an old school whatever it was, came on the radio, I would video all of us singing this song on the way to school and then post it to my Instagram. And you'd have all the, I go places and meet people and they're like, why don't you do any more of those videos with your kids? I'm like, because they don't think it's cool anymore.
That's like carpool karaoke before it was carpool karaoke.
That's exactly what it was. But it was always like, some, I don't know, some. We're doing LL Cool J in the car with my kids.
Oh, yeah. My boys know every Eminem lyric.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the Rise to School.
And that's post LL Cool J and everything. So
this is good.
This is really very good. It's got a really nice balance. It's sweet and spicy.
And very much on the sweeter side.
And nice nice finish on it. And so does this fall into that sub $100 category per bottle? I think
does.
typically like
It does,
$79.99 is typically, right?
That's where this one's gonna land.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great bottle.
It's very good.
Nice blend.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Dude, thanks for having me.
We appreciate
Sure.
it. Thank you
for coming to the great state of West Virginia.
Hell yeah.
And to Paul's, right?
Yeah. So thank you to Chef Paul for allowing us to use the restaurant. Thanks to our live studio audience. We appreciate you guys. And I know not all you got the Kentucky Owl. It's here for you. You want you to drink it. I want you to try the hip hop blend.
Yeah, there's a little more of that.
Yeah.
So be free with that.
Yeah.
I've got some more for later.
And we're going to do a nice meet and greet tonight, at our local Hale House. We have a great little speakeasy downstairs. So.
Yeah, we're going to go over there and hang out. And Mrs. Dedman, thank you for allowing Dixon to travel to be with us today.
Let me say
fun
this
times,
before
man.
Before I'm sure you all have a sign-off thing, but
this is it.
You guys, you've been so good to me, so supportive. Kentucky Owl through this, helping, promoting everything. There's not another group like yours. We've had, I've had a couple retailers that are on their second barrel, but not one that said, "Hey, we like them so much we're doubling." This is cool, man. It means the world to me. I can't thank you enough. Your group, the team, it's really awesome. So thank you. I feel very honored and very privileged to be able to come and do this, and you all to have me, and so I truly mean it. Like, thank you.
I remember when we had you on in 2023, and we always do this post guest wrap up, or at least we did back then. And I was like, he's just so humble. Like, the juice is great. He's so humble. The story's great. Like, the ancestry part of it's all awesome, and we loved it. You make really good stuff, and people love it. And the fact that we could sell out 2 barrels in no time is a testament, not to us, it's to you and the following and the quality that you guys are creating. I know that the hip hop blend is going to be very popular. We're going to sell it here at Walgreens, I'm sure. We appreciate you coming on, man. I mean, you always a delight. Our best intro, we always do different intros, is the Dixon Dedman intro where he was like, "You guys, why you listen to these guys? Get a real job, Bourbon Podcast. It's awesome. We love it. Yeah, that's a great. We've played that, I bet, on 50 episodes. It's hilarious. So thank you for not only just creating great stuff, but just being a hell of a guy.
Thank you all for sharing it with people, and that's that's the cool thing about making something that you kind of put a lot of you into creating it, and then it being shared, and it being, that's what this is for. Like, that bottle's to be opened.
Well, and
absolutely.
I think, I'm a big storybook guy, and I think the legacy of your family, going back, that exudes in every pour of every bottle you've done, but in particular with these 2 single barrels we've done. I mean, this is part of kind of a culmination of your family history.
We have to do more.
It's a big deal.
Because there's a lot of people getting mad I've said
it's like,
bottle.
what is in the glass? And, Dixon is in this glass. There's no doubt.
Next time, I'm coming with the samples. We're doing
hell yes.
Together,
challenge accepted. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you're following us on our podcast website and our newsletter. We've got bourbonpodcast.com. Go there. You'll be able to sign in. Bradley Harris, who does a great job on our newsletter. Make sure you're getting there because we do a lot of different drops there. We make sure that all of our barrel picks are there. And follow us on social media. We've got 100 and some thousand followers on Instagram. We've got a couple hundred thousand followers across our platforms. We are the most followed podcast in the world with regard to bourbon and whiskey. So make sure you are on there following us. We do some videos, we do some different things, but we also do special releases on our Instagram and on our newsletter. So cheers, everybody.
Final cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks so much.